Thank you, Joey. That was a beautiful job. Our next person that's going to get up to speak to us, our only speaker this year, is my brother in Christ and our veteran of the Marine Corps and the Army, Brother Jason. Are you ready? He's going to come up and speak to us. Y'all welcome Jason Floyd.
That ain't gonna happen. Because like a pastor prepares his sermon, God inspires that pastor. And whatever is on their heart, they must speak. Because if you fail to speak that, you're not speaking the truth of what's in your heart. So I apologize if y'all got dinner arrangements or barbecues to go to. It's going to be a little held up. These heroes are dead. They died for liberty. They died for us. They are at rest. They sleep in the land they made free. Under the flag they rendered stainless. And under that solemn pine, the sad hemlock, the cheerful willows, and the embracing pines, they sleep beneath the shadows of the clouds, careless, alike the sunshine or of a storm. Each in the windowless place of rest. Earth may run red with other wars. They are at peace. In the midst of battle, in the roar of conflict, they found the serenity of death. I have one sentiment for soldiers living and dead. Cheers for the living and cheers for the dead. Robert G. Ingersoll. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to take this opportunity to say how humbled and honored I am here this beautiful morning. When asked to give a speech in honor of the fallen men and women of this country, I asked myself, am I worthy to attempt such a feat? I came home. Do I have a glimmer of a feeling of what it's like to give my life for others to be free? I only know the adrenaline and the fear, the sickness in my stomach, the unquenchable thirst, the endless dirt and dread and tormenting feeling is today my last. Shortly into my time in theater, I considered myself already dead. Can you hear me? No? What about now? My apologies. Shortly into my time in theater, I considered myself already dead. Only when I accepted my walking death could I then do my job effectively to save my own life and to watch the backs of my comrades. From my youngest memories, I wanted to be a soldier. Like my father and scores of others in my family before me that wore the uniform of this country. At the age of 17, I donned my first uniform and wore it for the majority of my life. Selfless service was ingrained in me. Honor was ingrained in me. Loyalty to my country was ingrained in me. Patriotism was ingrained in me. But these values were not ingrained in me by the military. It was ingrained in me first at home by my grandparents that lived through the Depression and World War II. And even in our time of plenty of prosperity, they never forgot the struggles to make it day by day. Through them, I learned of the sanctity of prayer that was needed in our lives as much as we need food to nourish our bodies and the air for us to breathe. Through them, I learned the value of my country and our common obligation to keep it safe. From their sacrifice, prayer, and endless work in the reconstruction of our country after the Depression, they put this country back together and they loved what they had done. And they did it with No government bailouts or handouts. They did it with their sweat and their determination to build a better world for their family. They loved me enough to pass that on. That commitment to my country and to the memories of the sacrifice of others. In the Scouts, I learned what the true value of a man was, what society needed in a man. In the principles that built this country, that commitment to God, country, and brotherhood with my neighbor, in order to have a peaceful and hard-working, dedicated society to something grander than oneself. Never did my elders believe that that organization would be stripped of its dedication to build young men in that fashion. And by my school, back when school taught the next generation what it meant to be an American and to be proud to be an American and have no other title other than American. Excuse me for one moment. And school taught me to understand our history, good or bad. Understand our history in its entirety, no matter good or bad, so the next generation being brought up would not repeat those mistakes of our past, but strive for a better country. When we forget our past and accept half-truths and myths as facts, the future will be grim and far worse than any chapter of our past. And those that will suffer more from the perversion of the meaning of this country and the progressive march to something other than what our founding fathers put their necks on the line for, to have a republic unlike any in the world, is our children. What country will they inherit? What lies ahead of their future? If it is prosperous, safe, and patriotic as my childhood was, it is because we as parents, real men and real women, did their jobs to ensure a positive future for our children. If they inherit rubble, it is because we failed. We failed to give them what we had. We failed to give them what God has ordered us to do as parents. These values I've just described are not only unique to me, but unique to millions of others who were taught just as I was. We, these few million, that because of this teaching gives us this day that we are all here in attendance for. Truly knowing what a soldier or Marine was didn't come to me much later in my life. After boot camp and infantry school, after many years of service to my country, I really didn't understand until I was tested and felt so much loss that it's really hard to describe. It still is pretty much confusing till this day. In my older years, now I can sum it up what a soldier is. A noble chief of long ago spelled it out in no other way anyone can do in better words. Warriors are not what you think of as warriors. The warrior is not someone who fights, for no one has the right to take another life. The warrior for us is one who sacrifices himself for the good of others. His task is to take care of the elderly, the defenseless, those who cannot provide for themselves, and above all, the children, the future of humanity. Sitting Bull said those words. A most complicated subject, his life and legacy was and is. What did the last 6 paragraphs have to do with the men and women who fought and died for this country? Well, it's all about patriotic mentality that my generation and my father's generation possessed in the generations before him. I grew up on G.I. Joe, cartoons and action figures. My 7-year-old daughter can attest to the fact they are fun to play with, and she does regularly. Some are worth hundreds of dollars and over 33 years old. Being an Army brat, I was surrounded by soldiers and veterans in my family. And being a child of the Reagan era, which his leadership and love for this country brought that the mixed feelings from the Vietnam War brought to this country, the fear of the Soviet Union and the communist domination of the free world, and how it was our duty to be ready to fight it. I grew up learning good guys versus bad guys, standing up for the meek and the esteem of being a hero just by one's service in uniform. The public service announcements at the end of G.I. Joe cartoons taught us to do the right thing, respect and helping those in need. Don't be a bully, and a plethora of other important lessons that will make us valuable citizens and worthy men. The last words of each of these cartoon public service announcements were, "Knowing is half the battle." This is what the generation of the 70s grew up on. This is what we learned. And I'm glad I learned all those lessons from society, my president, and at times my family, the majority. These lessons inspire many of us to strive to be heroes and to be good men and women. And how can anyone in our society criticize or condemn us for volunteering to serve our country, whether we live through it or we die? That's what we were taught. I would like to depose a myth that plagues the views of these men and women who served in Vietnam. Of 38% of those that served in Vietnam were draftees. 38% of all that went to Vietnam were draftees. The rest enlisted of their own free will to serve their country, regardless of the politics. 75% of the population agrees that the war was lost because of the lack of political will, not the lack of the ability of the troops in the field. The men and women that died in Vietnam did not die in vain. They fought for that brother to their left and right, regardless of color and religion. The media did more damage than any attack against the troops on the ground. The media was instrumental in turning the backs of many of this country to those that it was serving. The media failed to show the crimes that the Viet Cong did to their own countrymen. The media failed to show how the Americans were trying to help the people in the villages with medicine, education, clean water, and sanitation, all at the same time trying to protect the people from the atrocities committed against the people of South Vietnam by the North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong. The media was quick to report the most trivial of perceived injustices committed by either American or Allied forces, but limp to report the mass graves and barbarisms of the communists. The NBA and Viet Cong didn't build roads, schools, and hospitals. They blew them up, though, killing children that American GIs were trying to help. But the American GIs built hospitals and roads. The NBA and Viet Cong didn't bring water pumps to the distant villages, so the villagers didn't have to carry water every day from far-off rivers. The Americans did, not the French, the Americans. The Americans, not the NBA, imported cattle for the villagers to raise to supplement their diet. Forget the politics surrounding Vietnam. These men that did these things to help the people of South Vietnam did so because they possessed those values I mentioned earlier. It is not for the politics that a soldier or Marine jumps on a grenade. It is to save the lives of men and women in the squad. That is noble. That is honor. That is love. I would like to take this time to ask any Vietnam War veterans to please stand. Yeah, stand up again. Thank you. Your brothers and sisters did not die in vain. You ate into my speech with that little thing you did earlier. They're going to do it again. Many years ago, an old Korean War veteran and I struck up a conversation at the Atlanta airport. I was new to the Marines on orders to my first duty station in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. We talked about everything from the weather, the Marine Corps then and now, and then slowly it turned to politics. The old man was emotional on a simple subject you and I see every day. And we cannot escape them. Made in China. He said he felt cheated. All the fighting and suffering he did and comrades he lost at the Chosin, Incheon, and up and down the Korean Peninsula. He was for nothing, he felt. I fought that war for nothing if I look at the political side of it. But he kept each other alive, fighting for one another. That's what we did. We didn't have to think about the politics. That was a nervous time in our country. The Red Scares, the fear of Soviet bombers, being labeled communist was a shroud no one could escape except by moving to another state. We fought communists because they were everything we were not. And now my son and daughter lost their jobs in a mill back home. That whole NAFTA thing. I just don't get it, he said. We continued this conversation until I had to board my plane. Standing before him in my dress green outfit uniform, I saluted that old man. He stood and saluted me. I did an about face and I boarded my plane. I will never forget what all he told me about that war, about the friends he lost. His blue eyes teared up during much of our conversation about the so-called forgotten war. Forgotten by many, but not to him. I will never forget this feeling about what I could not see the gravity of, but later in life I did. And now I share his contempt. Do we have any Korean War veterans among us? If you know one, those men went through hell. Recently at Bass Pro Shop, I was looking for a foul weather coat. I looked at the tag, made in Vietnam. I dropped it to the floor. I couldn't believe what I had seen. I couldn't understand it all. I thought back to that old Marine. Then I thought about my dad and my uncles. Where is the respect? Where is the respect? It wasn't you and I that decided to close our factories and move them to China and overseas. We didn't make that choice. We didn't wake up one morning and say, give our jobs to somebody else. We didn't choose to go on unemployment. We didn't choose to foreclose on our own homes and become depressed and without hope to see all our hopes and dreams erode. Funny thing is, it wasn't the communists in China and Vietnam that took our jobs. It was the closet communists, the progressives, that gave the communists our jobs. Imagine if you were that old man I talked to at the airport. How would you feel? That is a lot to swallow for many of us. Dear God, thank you for this sunset and this beautiful sunrise this morning. And if it is my last, thank you for this day. If I die tomorrow, I pray you forgive me for what all I've done in my life. If I die tomorrow, Lord, I only ask that my death be quick and I do not suffer, because I've suffered much in this life. Please let my death be quick and like a blink of an eye, that I might come home to you and live it with the peace of your life and your endless love. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. That was the prayer I said every day in theater. I came home, others didn't. Men more worthy of life than I held for myself. And still today often I wonder, did I earn their sacrifice? Am I paying my debt to them? Every day I think about my platoon sergeant. Every day of my life. Not one day passes. I don't care if it's Christmas. I don't care if it's after a good meal my wife cooked. It's every day. Sergeant First Class Wilby, who lost lost his life on 20th of July, 2003 in Baghdad. That guilt I've carried all these years, I don't think a day of my life will ever go by. I don't think it. Even at the happiest moment, the day Samantha was born, I couldn't get him off my mind because he could never see his children again. He was the best soldier ever knew, and Marine. I mean, as far as the Marines and soldiers, he was the best warrior I ever knew. He was our best in the company as a leader, as a mentor, as a friend. He had the ability to talk to you as a father, and the ability to kick your butt back in line once you screwed up. But when it was over, he would say, "You'll be a better soldier now because you won't forget. Those arms will remind you of your pain and your screw-up." He took care of his men and often going up to bat for screw-ups to keep them out of trouble with the head shed. But positive action resulted in his tragic death. Ain't it funny how in combat you do something right and someone dies? Any of y'all understand that? He left behind a 7-year-old son and an 8-month-old son. With his death, a piece of me died with him. I did nothing wrong. I twist and adjust what happened in my mind over and over again and cannot come up with any way to make sense of it in my mind. I'm haunted by him. Not in a bad way, but as a father, I've experienced more with my children than he got to, so in my interactions with them, I often judge myself. When my platoon starts to be happy with me, along with my relationship with my wife. The same question haunts me over and over again. Am I worthy? I fight the feeling that I caused his death. No one has ever blamed me. I blame myself. For the rest of my life, I will think of him. I know God will judge me on my works here on earth. And I know I will see Willoughby if God finds me worthy. And then I will embrace him, and I will tell him I love him, and I have missed him. And I will ask him if I earned what he gave up. I pray I don't let him down, nor my God, nor my children. The only thing that matters to me is when I'm on my deathbed, my children look down upon me and view their father with no contempt. That's all that matters. And my name is all I have. And I will make the best of it. I'm still alive. I'm still alive because of Willoughby. My children exist because of Willoughby. I wouldn't have them if it wasn't for him. In the Talmud it says, when you save the life of one, in turn you save the world. That should be the Christian Bible as well. You are free because of him. He paid our modern day price for freedom. He's alive because you're alive because of him. In a theoretical sense. The question is, when we think of all these men and women that have died from World War II till today, have we earned it? Has this country earned their sacrifice? Honestly, I feel I'm not worthy of his sacrifice. For a moment, I'll pause and I'll apologize for being heated in my speech to you fine people, and how my trove of subjects have highlighted reflects on this day in memory of those that paid the ultimate sacrifice. I assure you will understand how all this intertwines on this sacred day. When we as a nation think of May 25th each year, we think of our servicemen and women who did make it home from war. But we as a nation need to think a little deeper into that. There are men and women whom we as a nation as a whole need to honor, just as we gathered here today, in honor of those that have died for us as a nation to be free. We need to take a moment to think about the blue and the red who have lost their lives protecting us every day here at home. Will the firefighters, volunteer or otherwise in the audience, please stand? If you are a volunteer firefighter at any point in your life, will you please stand up? Since September 11th, 1,700 of your brothers and sisters in uniform have died in the line of duty. Did anybody know that? Let us give a remembrance when we think about them. Will the law enforcement officers, reserve or otherwise, please stand and show yourself? Thank you. Since September 11, 2,226 of your brothers and sisters died in the line of duty. That's a lot of law enforcement officers dying in this country. Let us give a moment to think of them. May 25th of each year, hence to the end of our republic, should be for those who have fallen, protecting our homes and farms from fire or disaster, and protecting our communities and coming to our aid when we are in dire need. Those men and women who put on that uniform of blue and red every day write the same exact check for us that our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines have already done. Every single day, with no absolute guarantee they'll come home to their loved ones. They should be remembered with as much honor and respect as we give those who have lost their lives thousands of miles from home. Since our current conflict began 14 years ago, America has sent 2 million military personnel into combat zones. And 6,800 of them drew their last breath thousands of miles from here. What we as a nation need to ask ourselves is the price of their lives, the men and women who have mentioned thus far, being respected in the manner it should. A thus true question requires us, the living, to look deeper into the pain they made to each and every one of us. It seems today that when we turn on the news or some other form of media, we see some of the unexcusable treason, disrespect to those who have died in service to their homeland, no matter the theater or era of history. Just recently in Miami, Florida, Assistant Chief of Police Anita Najee, a Muslim with 32 years of service with the department, refused to place her hand over her heart during the Pledge of Allegiance at the Miami Police College. A question brought up by the Fraternal Order of Police President Javier Ortiz was, if you're not pledging allegiance to the United States, who are you pledging allegiance to? I agree with Mr. Ortiz, as do many of you, I would assume. It is my belief that Ms. Najee has no idea of an Army captain of Muslim faith that gave his life when he lured a suicide car bomber away from his men in his command, thus saving their lives, but giving up his own. Captain Haman Khan was a true American. Regardless of his Muslim faith, that doesn't matter. Does it matter? No. He died for his country. He died for those men in his command. And that flag that Anita Najee refused to put, to show respect to, was the same exact flag that draped his coffin in Arlington and was folded and handed to his father, who will miss his son, but knows he died defending their adopted country. We have college professors and student leaders that want our flag removed from campus because some student feels they are oppressed or subjugated by it. This is America. Does that even seem logical? That the American flag is offensive on the campus and creates division among the students? What country are you in? I would like to ask them that. Sounds like a hippie war protesters are ever so closely to creating that socialist utopia they protested for during the Vietnam era. Through the conditioning of our children and the failing welfare education system, the once subtle but now militant, liberal, and spousal divisions among the lines of race, economics, faith, and gender, and version of our Constitution through progressive politics. All to erode the fabric of our republic and our self-determination as free men. Where are the children and spouses, parents, while the Korean and Vietnam War dead to think? As a socialist rhetoric flourishes through our TVs, our political leaders, our corporate leaders, our school system and universities, the families of these men and women might be wondering if they had died fighting communism for absolutely nothing, as we slowly at first, but now more prevalent, move to a socialist country. Slowly, the Marxist doctrine and financial fascists have been stripping us of our means to provide for ourselves. Jobs virtually gone, family values are assaulted at every level. And now our identity as Americans being ever so swiftly ripped from us. Our World War II veterans who fought the greatest fight, not only in the history of our country, but in the history of the world, gave their lives in the face of fascism and unspeakable horror. Over 420,000 Americans gave up their lives to stop genocide and barbarism in Europe and Asia. What would have happened to our country if we had a president that ignored what the Nazis and the fanatical Japanese were doing to innocent people in their country and in other places? What would have happened? It's funny how history repeats itself. We need to stop and look at what's going on now in our present time. What has happened in our past and surmise what our future looks like just based on our country and how our mentality has changed over the last 30 years alone. We see every aspect of what sets us apart from the rest of the world being attacked from outside our borders and from within. It is those wounds from within that are most devastating. The opportunities that this country provides by allowing anyone, no matter their social status, race, sex, or religion, the opportunity to do anything. Some of our very own have decided to destroy it from within in the same breath. But some of us are fighting in the courts and the media to preserve what is left of our republic and to preserve the memory of those that laid their lives down for this nation. Sadly, educators like college professor Bill Ayers, a member of the Weather Underground, who planted bombs in Washington, D.C. and New York, and who gladly posed for photographs while standing on Old Glory, continuously preached socialist ideology, atheist mythology. And to our young people, he is guilty of being a domestic terrorist and treason, but yet he walks free and is a close acquaintance of a very high person in politics in this country, and aided that individual in beginning his political career. Often these professors near and far at campuses all over this country present an argument of one group has opportunity over another. That is a blatant lie. Nowhere in this country are there any blockades or roadblocks against any people based on sex, race, religion, or social class. Nowhere. But they shove it down our throats. They try to force us to believe that all of what these enemies of our republic do was paid for. What they're doing was paid for. With this check signed in the blood of a soldier who didn't come home. The deaths of these men and women gives those people the freedom to disrespect what others have given their lives for. A very valid point. Soldiers in the foxhole fighting an enemy that wants your head on a pole, don't care who's next to him as long as they're pointing the rifles at the same enemy. We have seen on the news many young people stepping on our flag that has adorned not only the numbers of our wars, but the tombs of our civil protectors as well. These young people are encouraging and promoting others to do so. This is shameful. And if I had died for my country, I would roll over in my grave just knowing that that attitude and behavior would be championed in the land which I gave my life. I would think that the check I wrote payable with my life for others to be free was unappreciated. Bless you. It is the most shameful act any person can commit in this country. To desecrate that Star-Spangled Banner. that was paid for in blood. Not politicians, not celebrities, and not a basketball team, but men and women who gave their lives so this nation would not perish from the earth. And its people would always live, striving for life, liberty, secured in their possessions, respected in their beliefs, and in their pursuit of happiness. I often question the integrity of our leaders, the majority of whom have never worn the uniform of our country. May I add that if it was a requirement for public office for a candidate to be a veteran in this country, maybe things would be much different here today. Here in this country, you will be fined and possibly spend time in jail if you deliberately harm a bald eagle, our national bird, our symbol of power. If a protester burns or destroys in some fashion an effigy of one of our political leaders, that protester will be arrested for terroristic threatening, which is a felony which accompanies a prison sentence. Can we see the two-faced relationship with our First Amendment? Burn a Quran or an effigy of Muhammad in an organized protest and see what happens. It seems some groups in this country are encouraged and protected in their free speech, but others, i.e. patriots and conservatives, are labeled as inciters or bigots and racists. These conservative groups are silenced and villainized by our media. An individual with power to sway our political leaders for use their influence and wealth to further degrade our country for whatever twisted gains they desire. Is this the America that so many men and women died for? How would you feel about their loss? Does it seem that many in this country are not grateful for their sacrifice? I'm utterly ashamed of my home state of Georgia. Not long ago at Valdosta University, several students, all of whom receive education benefits from the state of Georgia and from the federal government, organized a protest to where these people, our youth, our young people, our future leaders of this country, were encouraging fellow classmates to trample under their feet our national flag. Our national flag that covers the caskets of our fallen. And Air Force veteran Michelle Manhart attempted to rescue the flag from this protest. You would think that the security at the scene would have understood her position as an American and as a veteran. She said, in defense of her actions, "This flag may be your property, but it belongs to all of us and the people that died for this country. No, you ain't gonna do it." Michelle Manhart was arrested and banned from the college campus of Valdosta State and every college in the state of Georgia. During the confrontation before her arrest, the crowd said such vile things I cannot repeat here, and demanded her to be tased and pepper sprayed by the officers. The officer nearly had to break her wrist to remove the flag from her grip. Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry would have been proud of her actions. How ashamed I am. Would I go to jail in defense of my flag? Only one simple word: yes, with a smile on my face. That flag is more than colored cloth. It is the one thing, regardless of race, political stance, ideology, sex, background, that our fallen wear as their final garment. It's not adjusted for political reasons or your religion. It's the final garment before their eternity. How will my children view me if I refuse to defend her and my Constitution and our way of life? idea of my country, for their future. Such shame on those students. Such shame. They demand from the country to pay their way. Their entitlement mentality is disgusting as their actions display them trampling the symbol of all of us in the same breath. One word describes them: ungrateful. It is a sad. How long can our nation stand with such division? Apathy. These divisions that we have seen unfold recently in our country, with rights vanquished and many of the petty, shallow complaints championed for a few, brings one quote to mind: America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter, if we lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroy ourselves. Abraham Lincoln said that. I call you fine people. Earlier I did. Remember, I called you fine people. I call you fine people because look at where you're at right now. Today, you have all come together to pay respects, to pay tribute to those fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters who are no longer here with us, who paid the ultimate sacrifice. So you can sit where you sit, and for me to say what I have said. You came here at this time, this early morning, instead of heading to those sales at every department store in America. Sad, isn't it? On this day, St. Christmas or Thanksgiving, this is Memorial Day. This is a day of mourning. Companies are striving for a profit today. A profit made from the deaths of some of your friends, some of your family. They forget the meaning of this day, but yet here you all sit in a county of over 24,000 people. You are the ones that showed up. 24,000. You are all that came to pay your respects. You are all patriots. All of you are what this nation is intended to be comprised of by God. God will bless your homes today, just for your presence here today. Because inside of you is a spirit of freedom, and that light all true Americans have, to never live in tyranny and to stand up for what is right, for our flag and for our fallen. Did you ever think for a moment during my triade about the national colors, that in every climate and place where our soldiers have gone, that flag is flown as a symbol of freedom, duty, honor, might, and sacrifice. And like the fallen you have come here to honor today, our flag itself is the oldest of the fallen, the symbol of our freedom and of our dead. It too is a veteran. It is a police officer. It is a firefighter. It is a soldier, and all who gave their lives for freedom. So yes, my countrymen, my flag is my father. She is my mother. And like our fallen servants, our fallen civil servants, I will honor and protect her and their memory and stand in her defense. In my heart, there is no finer death than to die for what you believe in. In John 15:13, it is written, greater love hath no man than that a man lay down his life for his friends. Of anything that can be said, what greater words can speak about fallen soldiers? Because we were those friends, known and unknown. That idea, that friendship with those principles that sets us apart and unique to the rest of this world. A poem so precise to emphasize this day we are celebrating. No, we are humbly respecting a day fallen soldier, not the minister, who has given us freedom of religion. It is the fallen soldier, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of press. It is the fallen soldier, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the fallen soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us freedom to protest. It is the fallen soldier, not the lawyer, who has given us the right to a fair trial. It is the fallen soldier and steadfast patriot who has given us the right to bear arms, not an assembly of men. It is the fallen soldier, not the politician, who has given us the right to vote. It is those who salute the flag, who serve beneath the flag, and those whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows the protester to burn the flag. So pointed to the circumstances that seem to surround us and shocking that they were written so long ago. Seems like some could foresee the possible future and gave warning. Sadly, many warnings from the past have fallen on deaf ears. But as many of us know from our childhood, we didn't listen and failed to pay attention to those who know. We fail, and we will suffer, and we will regret our inaction to be proactive in preventing a possible future. If our children suffer under the yoke of fascism or communism in this country, they will have us to blame. And no excuse we could muster will be enough of an apology. And all the men and women who died in service of this country would have died in vain. In closing, I will leave you with two quotations that seem to ring true today. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on them to do the same. Ronald Reagan. That we here highly resolve that these dead men shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have